Willie Crawford, and I'm joining George Stavrou today on this Facebook Live. George is a health and fitness expert whom I'm helping to launch a product. The product's available now, but has a bigger launch plan for later on. Before kicking off that larger launch, I'm basically working with him to test out the website conversions and all those types of things before we go out and get a bunch of partners to help us promote this thing. Another reason I'm involved in this project is that I see far too many of my friends and clients, customers, relatives who neglect their health. They spend a lot of time, like I do, at the computer, and they don't take care of themselves. And so I wanted to sort of remind them that, you shouldn't spend your health trying to gain wealth or whatever, and then one day wake up and all of a sudden you're in really bad shape, and now you've got to spend all the money you've earned maybe trying to regain your health. That's sort of crazy. So I sincerely believe that you need to all along focus on living a healthy lifestyle in numerous ways, which George and I will be discussing. And so we're doing a series of Facebook Lives that'll be most Saturdays at noon Eastern, go for about 30 minutes or so. And we'll be basically covering different sections of George's training, which is called the Stavrou Method. It's a 12-week, day-by-day guide to health, wellness, and fat loss for all levels. George's package takes a holistic approach to optimal health and wellness and has contributors from 20-plus experts in the industry. He, along with a team of experts, cover the following areas: physical health, mental health, spiritual health, emotional health, financial health, and relationships with ourselves and with others. So we'll be doing these Facebook Lives weekly, and we'll be sticking around afterwards to answer any questions you may have. If you are watching like the recording, or you want to just ask questions later, you can contact either of us via email. And I'm reading the email addresses now. George is George, George, Stavrou, Stavrou, at Rogers, that's ROGERS.com. So George.Stavrou at Rogers.com. And I can be reached at willie.crawford@gmail.com. That's willie.crawford@gmail.com. And so we look forward to seeing you on the Facebook Lives and helping you with your health and wellness goals. George, I'm turning it over to you now.
Willie, thanks again for that great intro. So just to backtrack a little bit, we do the Facebook Lives Saturday, noon Eastern Standard Time. Next session, which is taking place next week, probably gonna have to go for a little bit of an earlier time just because I've got a social event that day, but we'll be posting information on Facebook and giving all our attendees advance notice on that. And just to pick up like where Willie left off, so a lot of times people will spend a considerable amount of time working on, say, the wealth side of it, and while money and finances are certainly important, we don't want to neglect our physical, the various aspects of health along the way. And Willie's been instrumental as far as tons of feedback and suggestions on taking my initial package to the next level, which actually incorporates those 6 modalities that Willie spoke about. So today's Facebook Live, we're going to get into fitness goals and expectations. Everybody has, just say different goals that they're working on, and sometimes the person doesn't know which goal is appropriate for them. So one of the things that we do recommend in the package is meeting up with a certified personal trainer, get them an assessment done, seeing where you're at as far as, say, strength levels, flexibility, cardio conditioning, girth measurements, body fat percentage, that type of thing. Because if you don't know where you're starting, it's challenging to figure out which direction to go in. So I'm just going to use just an example over here. Say an individual has met up with the trainer, and based on the results from their feedback, saying, okay, I'm looking at losing, say, 10 pounds. So this actually ties into, say, what's called the SMART approach to goals. And we've probably heard of this acronym over the years. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, action plan, say realistic, reliable, or relevant, and also a time frame. So if we're looking at, say, specific, instead of saying, I want to lose some fat, we want to be more specific. So in this case, the person wants to lose 10 pounds of fat. If you just say some fat, that could be 1 pound, it could be 20 pounds. But by having a definitive number that we're looking at, it's easy to gauge whether a person's actually going to be reaching that goal or not. It's not just taking a look at seeing what's on the scale, but also like how your composition changes. So a person could lose, say, 10 pounds of fat, but put on a considerable amount of muscle in the meantime, and maybe the scale doesn't really reflect that difference. So that's why it's nice to actually get assessed by a trainer, seeing what their before results were like as far as their body composition, and reevaluating on a somewhat regular basis. And then when we look at the M side of things, which is measurable, so in this case, losing 10 pounds of fat, is certainly something that a person can measure. And I'm a big believer in revisiting, see where I'm at and where I'm going. If we don't revisit things on a regular basis, we may lose track of the goal and not see the progress that we made along the ways. But you say, okay, well, as of today's Facebook session live, it's Saturday, September 8th. Here's where I'm at with things. Let's see where I'm at a month from now.
That makes perfect sense. And you mentioned realistic goals. Most people will notice that when you start losing weight in particular, that early on you lose it quite rapidly, or you can, but then it'll slow down. The weight loss pace will slow down just as you drop pounds, just because your body's adjusting to it, and it's just harder to lose those last few pounds. So people have to be aware of that too.
Exactly. And that ties into the A as far as the SMART goal, so an action plan. And while it's nice to have an action plan in front of you, maybe a person needs to reevaluate on a regular basis. Like, say a person does hit a little bit of a plateau where the gains just come to a sudden stop for whatever reason. So it's like, well, how do you figure out when to change your plan, or how to stay with your current action plan? So that's something it's nice to get feedback from a professional on, saying, no, it's there's a bit of a plateau that's kind of be expected at this point in the program. Or other times just say, this particular program has run its course. Here's the next phase that we need to consider.
That makes perfect sense. And people should also be aware that you could be on a weight loss program, and if you're on a holistic fitness program, you could put on weight because you're building muscle as you're losing fat, in some cases. So you could actually be getting healthier and gaining weight at the same time. Isn't that correct?
Oh, definitely. And another thing to consider is how your clothes are fitting. And that's certainly a big way of just measuring your progress along the way. So if your body weight is still the same according to what the scale says, if your clothes are actually looser, chances are you are gaining a fair amount of muscle and losing fat, because muscle is considerably denser than fat. And I don't know how well people can see the visuals, but say 5 pounds of muscle is about this big, and an easy way to figure out, how much muscle, how much space the muscle does take up, is actually visit your local butcher and say, show me 5 pounds of muscle, and then show me 5 pounds of fat in comparison. So the fat will probably be around this size or so. So everything else being the same, if the clothes are considerably looser, then you are dropping quite a bit of fat and put on muscle in the meantime.
That makes perfect sense. And now, you mentioned, getting that assessment. You recommended talking to a fitness or personal trainer expert. What you would also recommend them getting a complete workup with a medical professional too, wouldn't you?
Correct. Yes. So it's by visiting your GP, you can see what's happening with your blood work. There may be vitamin and or mineral deficiencies, hormonal imbalances, lots of factors there that may tell you that you're not quite ready to begin a program, or if you are ready, perhaps there's certain things that need to be addressed as well. So you could be doing all the right things according to what's laid out in front of you, but maybe your body's not absorbing certain things, and that needs to be addressed. Or if you're eating so-called healthy, certified organic foods, you may be allergic or intolerant to it. and that's something to look at as well. So I'm certainly a big believer in just seeing what's going on with your body at the moment, and if there are things that need to be looked at prior to starting a particular program, at least you have that information ahead of time. It just saves a lot of time and energy in the long run.
And I know that actually we talk about a holistic approach, even with that you're looking at a balanced diet too, because your body actually can only handle certain nutrients properly if they're in combination with other nutrients. I mean, some nutrients enhance the absorption of others. So another reason to consult with a professional to make sure you're eating a balanced diet.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, and things your body can actually change over the years as well. So certain food that you may have eaten as a teenager, your body just doesn't like anymore for whatever reason. I found when I was younger, I did fairly well with just a higher carb diet overall. And like, it didn't even matter where the carbs are coming from, whether they're good or bad. It just, at that point in my life, my body just required calories for the sake of calories. But I find as I'm getting older, it's got to be cleaner food. If I'm eating something that's somewhat junky, I notice the difference. So it's good in a way that it's immediate feedback, but it's bad just because it knocks me on my butt for the day. So I do allow myself to have, say, a cheat meal or even a cheat day. So even what I was saying earlier, we have to reschedule our upcoming Facebook Live next week. A cousin of mine's getting married that day. So I'm going to be enjoying myself, but leading up to it, I'm going to just be putting that much more into my workout sessions, tightening up the diet. So over the course of the week, my caloric needs are still pretty well the same. And I'm not really overdoing it on that one day in the grand scheme of things. So it might look like I'm being a bit of a slob that day, but I take that into consideration by maybe drop my calories by a third every day leading up to that big event.
That makes perfect sense. And in fact, I'm getting ready to go on a cruise, a Caribbean cruise where there's food available 24 hours a day all over the ship, and buffets all over the ship. And so I have to really watch that. But at the same time, there's a gym on the ship, and there's tracks running and things like that. So it's a matter of me deciding to be aware of what I'm doing to my body, and that's always the case. We look at things like diet, which is a word that many of us think means sacrifice, but it doesn't.
No, it's more of a lifestyle than anything else.
And so a lot of us think, well, if I'm on a healthy diet, I can't, eat out and things like that, but you can. You just have to be aware of what's in the foods that you're ordering,
Oh, exactly. And a few important things I'd like to share. It's like, one, earn your calories for the day. So I find that if I get my workout in first thing in the morning, I feel better throughout the rest of the day. And if I do go off my eating plan for whatever reason, I'm okay because the calories have balanced out. But I found that, if I start off the day with, say, some junk food or something like that, thinking I'm going to burn off the calories later, sometimes I feel so horrible from a particular cheat meal that I just don't have the strength or the endurance to get through my workout.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So we're talking assessment of weight training readiness too. So do you have to do some type of assessment of your musculature and all those things too?
That's right. So thing is, it's not just following a particular program as laid out. It's just finding out if that program is right for your particular needs at that time. So a lot of times people will start on a program and actually get in worse shape. So as an example, if somebody is an office worker where they're sitting at their desk and working on a computer throughout the course of the day, they tend to be hunched over. So they're going to be considerably tighter, say, in the front shoulders and also the chest. So they may be following, say, a program that's balanced out overall between the different muscle groups, but the fact is they are already tight in those particular areas. It's not going to balance them out in the long run. In a case they may need to forego working on their chest and their shoulders and spend more time, say, on their upper back. So a certified trainer can certainly sit down with an individual and just say, you're too strong in this area, you're too weak in this. We want to make sure that you're as balanced as possible on things. And there's a lot of things that you can do with an exercise program to correct those muscle imbalances and also your posture. So it's not just following a program blindly. It's like, oh, well, my next door neighbor's following this, they have amazing results. Maybe their body was ready for that particular program. And that's something that we cover in the method as well.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've been on computers since 1983 and spent a lot of time, scrunched over a keyboard and noticed it's affected my posture.
Yeah.
Yet I have friends who have stand-up work desks where you're standing up working, and some even have treadmills with a computer tray on the treadmill, so that they can, move while we're working.
Yeah.
Even when I'm talking on like a webinar like this or a broadcast like this, I have a Bluetooth wireless headset that I can put on.
Nice.
I can walk around the room,
Smart.
which gives you more energy while you're on the talk. And so it makes it more uplifting. Right? I mean, I'm not doing that right now, but I do have that ability to actually walk around, especially I'm just on a teleseminar where you're just recording the audio and not the video. I can be all over the room or outside even, and that's, because it just sit at the desk all day, it does, tire you out. Actually, to me, it tires me out anyway.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, we tend to get lazy when we're sitting down. So, we could just be slouched over and not even realize how bad our posture is. Before we know, we're actually falling asleep in our chair. Here's a piece of advice I picked up from a colleague of mine. And this particular piece of equipment goes under different names. You can call it a Swiss ball or an exercise ball or stability ball. But just think of like, a beach ball with just stronger material. And I'll have some tips as far as what to look for. But you want something that's anti-burst. So I'm just going to go off on a bit of a tangent, but it'll make sense in the long run. So an anti-burst, if the ball rolls over something that's sharp, instead of just popping like a balloon, it's going to deflate very slowly. So minimizes the risk of injury. So the reason why I'm mentioning that is I found that, even though I am knowledgeable about my posture, I do get lazy from time to time because I'm sitting in a chair. So by sitting on one of those stability balls, if I start to doze off or if my body is out of whack, I lose my balance. I could actually fall off the thing. So it does keep you, more erect and more alert in the long run.
So you're saying that you work while sitting on the ball?
I work on my computer or sitting on the ball sometimes, yes. Not all the time, depending on what it is, because sometimes I need to be very mentally focused and I want to have that extra energy as far as concentrating on being on the ball. But if something doesn't require as much concentration, I find that sitting on the ball does keep me just, in a more of an upright position in the long run.
I hadn't thought about it. I know people who have posture correcting chairs and things along that line.
Yeah, there's lots of devices that are out there. So I'd say it's like, stay away from something that's a little bit too rigid. It's just not good for the body. It's actually giving you too much support and encourages your body to be weak and lazy. We're meant to be moving around. Even what you're saying as far as the Bluetooth and the wireless headset, it gives you a chance to move around your office and you've got more energy. And, even if somebody say you're making cold calls or something like that, it seems like you're better off standing up and making the calls because people can pick up on that energy on the other end without even necessarily seeing you.
Yeah, I learned that many years ago from my friend Alex Mandosian, who was teaching people how to do webinars or teleseminars. He taught you how to keep your energy level up, during the calls. And he talked about getting up and moving around. There's no reason just to be sitting at your desk unless you need to be in front of the camera,
Yeah, so it's tips like that certainly help people get on the right track with things. So we covered the specific part, the measurable, having that action plan in place, and does not be too rigid an action plan, but it's just more about a roadmap in a sense. Nothing wrong veering off once in a while, but you still want to maintain that direction, something that's realistic for your particular needs at the time. And then the last letter in the SMART plan is T, which is time frame. So like, what type of time frame are we looking at? So if a person is looking at losing 10 pounds, a larger, morbidly obese individual can safely lose the 10 pounds, a lot faster based on their current physiology than somebody that only has their last 10 pounds to lose. So if a person's like, 400 pounds and their ideal body weight is 200, that 10 pounds is a relatively small percentage in the long run. But if I'm down to the last 10 pounds, my body's going to be holding on to it. It doesn't want to give it up because it doesn't realize what I'm working towards. At the same time, you still want to, have a certain amount of caution when you approach it. Like, okay, I'm going to want a fat diet and lose 10 pounds in a week. It's definitely not recommended. A general rule of thumb, and this is just a guideline, they say 1 to 2 pounds of fat loss per week, or whatever your physiology will allow.
Yeah, I've lost 10 pounds in a week, but I discovered that I lost a lot of muscle in the process, and when I wanted to lose fat.
Yeah. Well, think of somebody that has a bad case of the flu. They're not eating for a considerable amount of time, and they're bedridden. So the 10 pounds is coming from the fat and the muscle at the same time. And when they regain that weight, chances are it's not the same 10 pounds that they've lost. You're not going to regain a lot of muscle in a hurry. Your body has to put the time and effort into the gym and give it a reason to build that muscle.
And the muscles would actually atrophy if you spent too much time in the bed too. So they would shrink on their own from lack of use.
Exactly. The thing is, when a person has built up a fair amount of muscle, there's a thing called muscle memory. So think of, say, an individual with a very thick rubber band. If it's brand new, there's going to be a lot of tension in it. But when you gradually work at it, it starts to lose some of the tension. So it actually remembers the furthest part that you pulled on it. So you're not going to go to the full length right off the bat. But the last just says, oh, I've been there before. It's easier to get there again. So when I mentioned that, when a person built up a certain amount of muscle, I've done that already. It's harder to gain that first 5 pounds of muscle rather than a person that takes a break from a program and then regaining that 5 pounds later.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Now I'm looking at your Facebook page there, and I don't see anyone asking any questions. I do see that we have people who at least like the program. I can't tell who's physically on right now, but I can tell that there's people who like it. So
well, which is certainly a great start, and it's still early in the series, so it's just a matter of people coming on board when they're ready for it. But we are posting a link to an archive section for the Facebook sessions, and people can access that through the special link. And I'll be putting that on Facebook a little bit later today after our recording is edited.
Okay, and I mentioned that to an extent because I wanted to encourage people who are on the live to leave their comments, questions.
Yeah, most definitely. And if they're not on the live for whatever reason, just email us and we can certainly address the question the next time around.
Excellent. So do you want to continue maybe moving on to the next topic, or do you want to do some summarizing?
Yeah, so a brief summary, will certainly help out. So, before even figuring out what proper fitness goals and expectations are, certainly meet up with your healthcare practitioner, get some blood work done. If you can meet up with a certified personal trainer, find out if you do have any kind of muscle imbalances, strength discrepancies throughout your body. Another area to look at, and we talked about this in a previous Facebook Live, is food allergies and intolerances. So many of us are aware of individuals that have, say, peanut allergies. And kind of goes back to the whole good and bad thing. So the good thing is it's immediate. You get that feedback right away. But the bad thing is it's lethal. A person can die from it. So that's what's called an IgE reaction. That can take place immediately or up to 2 hours after ingesting the food or the liquid. Another type of reaction is an IgG. It could be 2 hours. Some experts say several days later, or some say even several weeks later. So a person may be saying, okay, well, I'm feeling out of sorts and it's right after Labor Day weekend. what did I have this morning? Well, was it something that you had this morning, or is it something, say, toward the end of August, and you're just starting to feel the effects now? And sometimes you kind of have to reach that threshold. So it's almost like straw that broke the proverbial camel's back. Is it that exposure of like to the food that you had this morning, or just a buildup over time? The body says, I had enough and I can't clear out my system quick enough. So I'd say certainly looking into that and finding out what your problematic foods are, and based on that, you can certainly build your nutrition plan around it.
I think it's also important that when you're talking with your healthcare professional or your fitness professional, that you make sure you discuss all of your health issues and your medications with them, because those things impact things too. Like I'm a big fan of essential oils, where there's certain ones that'll lower your blood pressure. So you want your physician to know that,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe he's giving you something to treat blood pressure, and maybe it's two things treating the same thing, and that may overdo it. So overcorrect it,
That's
or
right.
you have these interactions, whether it's a food or a drug interaction. So you need to make sure that the professional you're working with, is aware of that. Even a fitness expert, if
Mm-hmm.
you have hypertension, you want your fitness expert to know that, so that they're monitoring it for you. Watching for your reactions. Maybe something that will show that you're overdoing it. Whatever.
Exactly, yeah, because they don't want to have any unknown variables in there. Because when they are making recommendations, it's based on what you're currently telling them. So the more open and honest relationship you do have with your various healthcare practitioners, the better results you're going to get in the long run. There's also a certain measure of safety as well, because there could be a potential contraindication that you mentioned, and if you don't have a communication, that mix, say, between an oil and the medication doesn't sit well with it, could potentially be lethal. So just say, here's what I'm doing, here's the dosages that I'm taking. The more communication, the better, for sure. And if it's a practitioner that's not open to their patient using, like, say, certain essential oils or supplements, then they may need to consider finding somebody else to work with, because it is your health and it's a matter of being proactive in the long run.
And if someone decides to take a certain supplement or certain herbal remedy or whatever, they first of all should have researched the topic, and so they probably know more about
Mm-hmm.
chemical interaction than their medical professional does, because they can't focus as much on every little area. So
Oh, that's right.
yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times, like, people say, well, is this good or bad to take? I think it just depends. So if looking at the big picture, a person could actually be drinking too much water. So generally speaking, water is good for you. But too much in too short a time frame, there's a term out there called hyponatremia, or water intoxication,
Oh,
where a person can actually just kind of, the body almost drowns by having too much water in too condensed a time frame. So if you see people, say, especially with you and your background in the military, you look at the long hikes that you've been on and carrying a ton of equipment and things like that, you're not going to be carrying too much food or water because it weighs you down. And the mistake that some people make is when they're done that particular hike, they just you know, gulp down tons of water all of a sudden. And it's not good. So that even though the body's craving it, it just go on a slower speed, and you're going to be better off in the long run.
huh? I didn't know that actually. That you said hypernatremia.
Hyponatremia, yeah.
Uh,
It's not to say that you can't build up to certain amounts of things. So I find I can drink more water now than what I used to, but I'm not going to start drinking gallons all of a sudden. If I
right.
do, it's not like bad stress on the kidneys, but it's kind of harder to stay on top of it.
Yes. And you mentioned having a large reaction to certain foods after a while after. Our bodies actually, we have organs that store certain nutrients and certain elements, and those things can build up in the organs too. So you can eat something that doesn't affect you right away, but it maybe builds up in the liver or the spleen or whatever, and then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden there's enough stored there that it
Oh,
bothers.
exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and thing is, like, you know, a person doesn't get sick overnight for the most part. It tends to be a gradual thing. So it's like, you know, don't expect to get healthy overnight either. So say a person does a cleanse, and there's different approaches to take. And I'm going to be doing, like, you know, a future interview with one of my colleagues because they've got more experience in this area than I do. So some experts out there recommend doing a cleanse every time that the season changes, because it's kind of easier to stay on top of things and say, well, okay, fall is just right around the corner as we're doing our recording right now. I don't know if I necessarily do a cleanse like on the first day of fall, because Thanksgiving, or at least Canadian Thanksgiving, is shortly thereafter. So I don't want to, like, you know, put all this time and effort into the cleanse and then be a bit of a slob on Thanksgiving weekend. So I'm going to do it shortly after Thanksgiving weekend because I know what I'm like on that weekend. I just want to, you know, only have to do the cleanse once rather than twice, since it's a short time thing. But I'm still going to be eating rather clean leading up to it. So it's less stress on the body in the long run.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And I'm still not seeing any questions in the chat window, and that's one of the things I monitor. That's why I keep looking down. So I'll just follow your lead, though.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's great that you're keeping an eye on that. So I think we've covered a fair amount of information today. So we can just wrap this up. The recording will be available a little bit later this weekend. And as far as our next session taking place next Saturday, you know, two of us can figure out, you know, a good time for that. Okay. And I just look forward to the next meeting with you, Willie, and see if we can get more attendance for the next time around as well.
Same here. I'm looking forward to it, and looking forward to sharing with our audience, you know, how to actually live a healthier lifestyle in many different areas. You know, how to improve your lifestyle, improve your health, improve your happiness and your wealth and your energy and everything. So it all fits together.
Yeah, and that's why we do take a holistic approach, because you could be healthy in some areas and other areas not so much. So fortunately, we do have, you know, over 20 plus experts in the areas that you mentioned earlier. So it's a matter of optimizing your health and being able to sift through the information that's out there.
Right.
You know, the resources are on the internet, but if you don't know what to look for and how to decipher it, it's time out of your day that you could be putting elsewhere. Yes. So our goal with the Facebook Live is just to speed up the whole learning curve with people so they can get to their goals how much sooner rather than later.
Excellent.
Good. Okay, well, Willie, looks like our time is about up. We've gone up for the half hour, and I do know that a lot of people have rather short attention spans. So, you know, we can wrap it up at this point, and looking forward to our next session for next week.
Absolutely. Thank you, George.
Thanks a lot there, Willie. Have a good day.